surrounding state law do you think are most important right now?
Well, I think if I were going to make a joke, I think one of the most important and pressing issues that I think is embarrassing to the state is that we need an attorney general that actually follows the law, that actually works with law enforcement instead of being investigated by law enforcement. And I think that's a very, very serious issue. And you know, I kind of flippantly say that, but as I mentioned earlier, I think that when you are the state's chief law enforcement officer, you are rightly held to the highest standards as you should be. Integrity and character matter. You know, the author C.S. Lewis said that integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's watching. And so I think that we need to make sure that the first priority for our Attorney General is we have an Attorney General that lives our values, represents our values, that can articulate and can defend those values. Two, as I said just a little bit ago, I think that we need to do a better job protecting the most vulnerable. And really a spillover of that is the state's Attorney General. You are the lawyer for all the state agencies. So when all these agencies, like for example the Board of Cosmetology is trying to crack down on a woman, a cancer survivor, who's trying to provide mobile hair treatments to people, and that case ended up in court and the AG's office finally backed down and settled. If I were Attorney General, I'd be saying to my lawyers that represent those state agencies, what are you doing? What kind of advice are you providing them that they think this is the best course of action? So I think the Attorney General's office needs to get back into the business of providing good, reasonable legal advice to agencies and making sure that we are solving problems instead of creating more problems. One of my great frustrations as an agency director for 4 years while Tom Horn was the Attorney General is it was very, very difficult to get an answer that really wasn't about protecting the boss. And one of the first things I'm going to do when I'm Attorney General is I'm going to tell all the lawyers in that office, look, you do your job, you provide good legal advice, you make sure state agencies are doing the public's work, and when it comes to the politics or the backlash or whatever, that's my job as the elected official. It's not your job to worry about protecting me. You do the public's interest. You do what's right for the public. And so I think one of the great challenges we have right now in the Attorney General's office is there's a very much a defensive mentality, and it's sometimes there's a disconnect between the lawyers that work there and their obligations of what it is as far as serving the public. And I think that we need to do that. So I know it's a very broader answer, but I think it ties back into what's going on at CPS and really kind of the lack of adequate and consistent legal advice that's getting. And I think that part of that may go back to even the morale within that office. It's ironic, some of the documents that were recently released this last week regarding the way that Tom Horn's run the office talk about the fact they need to improve morale. And that's something him and I agree on. Morale is terrible in that office. In fact, I was joking with someone I worked with back in, 15 years ago at the AG's office that, when we were there, if there was a job opening, it would be filled like in less than a week. There was never any openings. And now you see a lot of openings that stay open for a long time for positions there at the Attorney General's office. And I think that's because people don't want to work there. And we need to get back to an Attorney General's office where people want to work there, where they want to do the state's business. And so I think that part of my priorities, the three I laid out, one of them directly relates to this and what's going on with the legal advice state agencies are getting, including CPS. And by approving that, you can improve protecting the most vulnerable. But I think a corollary to that is that, and this is who I am, I'm always strict here, I really do think there's a lot of overreach by the federal government. And I really think this is a serious matter that folks are talking about, but we're not doing enough about it. And so whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's, like I said, all these radicals in the Environmental Protection Agency, they are impacting our economy, our daily lives on a daily basis. And you look at what's happening, what's going to happen, I predict, with property here out west, where what's happened historically, Bill Clinton did at the end of his term, where they set aside millions of acres and they declare them national monuments using the Antiquities Act. I think Obama's going to do the same thing. And what ends up happening is that affects our economy, because then you can't, for example, you can't harvest the timber on that land, and then you end up with these huge fires. You can't, do mining leases or grazing leases. You can't, even use your ATVs now. I was up in the Verde Valley yesterday, and someone was talking about, as a result of that, him and his family can't ride their ATVs anymore over to this Verde River area. They can only walk in now. And he was kind of bigger gentleman, and he said, I can't walk 5 miles back there anymore. And so I think that there are a lot of issues like that we need to be prepared for, that I'm prepared for. And so I think this is a serious challenge affecting our state, and I think sometimes folks don't appreciate how much it impacts us, because then it has an impact even on our taxes and how we get our tax bases. And so you look at the amount of federal land that's owned in Arizona, and then we beg Congress for PILTs, payments in lieu of taxes, and it has a devastating ripple impact, I think, on our economy. And so, it's going back to, I think as a state, we need to get back to an attorney general that understands and respects the rule of law, so that way businesses, folks in here that are the drivers of our economy, the ones that make it work, can do what you need to do, where you know what the rules are, where you can be involved in hiring folks and giving them good jobs, and then they can become productive members of society and without unnecessary interference from the government.